What is up, everybody? Josh Tapp here again, and welcome back to the Lucky Titan podcast. Very, very excited for this guest. I have to tell a bit of a story here because Michele, she and I met. I don't even remember who introduced us, Michele. Oh, it's Kyle. Kyle, most of you know Kyle, but Kyle was like, Josh, you got to meet this lady. And I said, okay, Kyle doesn't really say that very often to me because I try to really protect my schedule. But we had such an awesome conversation. At the end of it, I'm like, man, she's doing something so incredible in the marketing sector. You all need to hear it. So that's why we brought her on here. So Michele, this is Michele V or Vilseck, right? She's not Gary V's daughter. We established that.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to make it easy for people. Thank you
Yes.
for having me.
Good to have you here, though. Regardless, Michele, it'll be fun to deep dive with you. Now, I'm going to kind of kick this off by explaining to everybody and giving you the 30,000-foot view of Michele actually leverages events, digital events, to sell high ticket products and services. And, for me, I've done tons of events. I've spoken on stage hundreds and hundreds of times. I'm probably close to 1,000 times at this point. I've done it all. And I can honestly tell you that speaking in front of groups, no matter how big or small, is the fastest way to generate sales. So you've got such a cool system. I want to know, how you got there to like where you realized, holy crap, I'm onto something. That's like my first big question for you is when you're like, okay, epiphany moment, this is it. This is the offer I want to give. So what was that for you?
Oh, okay. I thouut you had a second half.
Nope, you carry on.
So yeah, actually, I'm going to be totally honest and say I stole this from my coaches who are running this model. That's the best way to find stuff. But as far as I was sitting in I remember, everybody's got a coach, right? So I had a coach who was amazing. And we had this big epiphany moment for me. And then I was like, I would love to do workshops and events. And she's like, yeah, why don't you go do that? And I thought, oh, but I have to be like Tony Robbins. I have to be like Russell Brunson. I'm going to have this huge stadium with all these people in order to make an impact. I don't know where I was going, but I'm like, that's going to be someday. That's going to be later. And then like a week later, I get this email in my inbox that said something about virtual events. And so I was like, well, that's cool. I'll just go, have you ever been, you're like, I guess I'll just go see what it's about. And it was so good. It was like a Netflix series. I couldn't stop watching. And that's how good this event was. And I was like, yes. And so in the event, they were talking about how you can, as a coach, you can do a virtual event right now. So you don't have to put all of this investment into it. It's something that's available to you right now. And it was amazing. I loved what they did. And I'm like, yes. And I just went all in. I started doing that and doing it for my own coaching business. And then I loved it so much, I wanted to start doing it for everybody else too.
Well, you almost were like, well, I got it from my coach, which is actually like the coolest thing I've heard in a long time because everybody's like, well, I invented this crazy, amazing model. And you're like, no, I just took one that worked and made it better. Like, that's awesome. I love that.
They had it all figured out. And I was like, hey, there's not very many people doing that. I'll go do that thing.
Yeah, no joke. And what's so interesting about the way that you came to this, and I'm just going to marketing nerd out here, or maybe it's business model nerd out with you for a second, but that's such a fun way to launch a business is to all of a sudden find like, well, there's a gap in the market here. I already have the skills to fill that need. Why don't I just do it? That's a cool moment instead of saying, there's not a board game out there, where it shocks you every time you pull out a Jenga piece, right? Not there's anything wrong with this, by the way. I have a buddy who did that as a business. It's actually doing really well. But like, you're not just like pulling something out of your butt and saying, okay, I'm going to be an inventor. You said, hey, it's a model. It works. Here's a gap in an industry. I'm going to fill it. I'm curious for you, Michele, like, how did you find that there was the gap in the industry for you? Like, where you realized, well, there's a need for this.
Well, my coaches do this on the side where they do event. They coach people to do events, but then they also do event consulting, and they just have way more people coming to them than they can even handle. And so they're like, there's so many people out there, it's ready. And also just whenever I talk to people offhand, tell them what I'm doing, I just heard myself in them like, oh, that's so hard, or, oh, that's going to take so much time. Or like I said, whenever I thought, oh yeah, I can do this, it's going to be awesome. Every time you say that, you're like, it's not going to take too much work. And then you start building the funnel and the workflow and this other thing. And then what do I say? And then all these questions that come up, and we just moved to a new system, and it took us like 4 weeks to get everything moved over for just one funnel. And I was like, Yeah, you just forget how much all the little techie stuff
Oh yeah.
just messes you up. So it's that piece, just like wanting to give people that piece and have it totally done for you, because that's who doesn't like done for you. And then
Yeah.
the other piece is that there's just a lot of misconceptions around virtual events, and how the virtual event space is not as, I mean, there's just a misconception that it's not as profitable as in person, or it doesn't work, or people don't show up, or they're tired of it, or things like that. Whenever I feel like it's one of the most accessible things for your business, because there's no upfront fee. You can jump in there. Even if you totally bombed, like, what are you out? You're not really out anything. So it's a great place to get your feet wet and get all of your pieces of your event figured out. So then if you did want to go in person, you can go launch it in person.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've already got the model. You're like, well, all we have to include is the travel piece, like the physical event piece, which is obviously a massive undertaking.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like in the digital side, what really sucked me into the model of what you were saying is we've done this over and over and over again, where we just do it. But like where we're even at in business is going, I do not have the time to step out and build the funnels. And not that I can't do it, just the time's there. I'm like, I don't have time to do this. And it doesn't fit with my other promotions and other things like that. So there's all these other things that I'm going to use as an excuse, and I'm never actually going to do it. But you've found a way to basically say, let me just take it over. Let me do the whole thing for you. Because I mean, your offer, forgive me if I'm wrong here, but you're basically saying, we'll come in, we'll do the marketing, we'll do the sales, and we'll MC the event. Like, you do everything.
Yes. Yeah. I like to explain it to people kind of like a podcast interview, honestly, is like, you give us your bio and we offer what you're doing. We'll optimize everything. We'll tell you what to say, and so whenever you come to the event, we've kind of prepped you ahead of time a little bit, but it's more like this podcast interview where I've got all the pieces. I know how they fit. You just come on, and then I prompt you with some questions and things, and you've got some things ahead of time that you've prepared, and you probably told these same stories over a million times over anyway, and then, lead you through the process. So yeah, it's as hands off as we can possibly make it.
That's amazing. Oh, I love it. So when it comes to launching an event like this, right? You've done multiple of these at this point, correct? Like, you've done multiple events at this point. So what have you found to be kind of the type of event, like the structure of event that works best to sell high ticket? Because I mean, there are summits, there's webinars, there's digital, what do they call them? It's like a mastermind almost, but they bring in a panel. Yeah, it's like a panel discussion, right? They've got all these different ways to do it. Like, what have you found to work best? Is it a mix of all of them, or what works?
Yeah, there's a couple different things that will work, but the basic pieces of what works to sell a high ticket offer is they found that, I mean, you've probably heard this before, that your clients need to have contact with you from 4 to 7 hours worth of contact with you and exposure to you, so they can trust you, and then they're willing to buy your thing. So it needs to be something that's going to give them that kind of contact time with you. So at least a half-day event, 1-day event, 2-day event, where the challenges, those are obviously 5-day, but over the 5 days you get that exposure. So that's thing number one. Thing number two is it has to be a transformational event. So a lot of people, kind of what you're saying, a lot of people go into it thinking this is going to be a workshop. Like, I'm just going to go and I'm going to serve them. I'm going to give them tons of information, and then they're just going to want to buy at the end. Because if you go to an event and you don't really know what's going on in the background, you might think that's what they're doing and that's what they did to you, and that's why you want to buy their thing. But in reality, people don't want information. Because, I mean, have you ever been to an event where you've gone and then you go home and you're like, I don't even remember what.
Oh yeah, most of it, right? You're like, oh, that was so hypey and fun, and I did nothing.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I don't do anything. I don't feel transformed. Or you went to the event and then you're like, oh, I already got everything I need, so I don't need to buy their thing. Right. So a transformational, and I guess one other thing is people will often say, oh, tell them what to say. Just don't tell them how to do it. Right. Or tell them what to do. Just don't
tell them what to do. Don't tell them how to do it. I don't believe that in the slightest, but yes.
Yeah. And so, yeah. Why? Tell me why you don't believe that. Because I've got.
My 2 cents on it is that, like, I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on programs, courses, things like that. And every single one of them gets you 99% of the way there so that they can sell you the next thing. And so they never actually solve the base problem. And you're like, why don't you just solve one problem first and then hand me off the next? Like that's what we do, is we say, okay, let's fix this problem first. Once you've solved that problem, there's a whole plethora of other problems. Here's a bigger offer for you that will solve a lot of those bigger problems, right? And like, it works for us, and it works for all other successful people because they provide real value. So that's my 2 cents. What about you?
Yeah, yes, I love that. Yeah. So I was thinking about you the other day. Actually, I did a video about you because
Yes.
about your model, because it's like a lot of successful businesses have an ascension model, right? Where you have a smaller offer that solves a problem, and then they have a new problem, and you sell them like a higher ticket thing.
Yeah.
And so if you think about your event as a mini ascension offer, then that's really the way to go. And so during the event, you help that transform them. They come in as one type of person, and then you help them. So it's an identity shift that you're looking at. Like, who do they need to be by the end of this program to be ready for the next thing? Versus like, what do I tell them or not tell them? And then you get confused and you're all stuck in your head and you don't even know what to say. I don't know how many people I've worked with like that. So
well, let me give you I'm going to give you a really bad example of what happened to me yesterday. Actually, my sales team put together, they wanted me to basically do a group sales call. I've never done one of these before. It's just the whole purpose was for me to sell. And I really had no preparation. I showed up to this call, and there's like 6 people in the room, and it was like fun. I got them all excited, but I didn't even know what to do with them at the end of it. It was like, okay, now go back and talk to your salesperson. It was just like so uncomfortable. And by the end of it, I was like, what a waste of an hour for everybody. Like I'm like, yeah, they got lots of good value, but I'm like, I didn't give them anything really like tangible that they could walk away with. And I think really what happened for me is I went into the technical, and we talked technicalities versus the emotions. That's actually where my next question was for you, Michelle, is like, there's 3 types of buyers, right? We have the emotion, the logic, the fear, right? The ELF. I don't know who even came up with that, but emotion, logic, fear, right? And I think it's 70% of buyers will buy emotionally, but a lot of times we jump right to logic.
yes.
And so what you're talking about, maybe I'm wrong on this, but like the transformation is more about tapping into the emotional sale. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we do ahead of time is, and here's your tactic right here. What you got to do with it.
She thought of it.
Tactic. It's coming. What you want to do whenever you're creating an event is sit down and think about, what are all the characteristics of my ideal buyer, right? So do they, maybe they're hardworking, maybe they value coaching, maybe, they've got some money. So there's some money issues that they use that maybe other people have, but they don't have, and so you're coming up with a list of who is my ideal buyer, what do they value? And then you can create the event around that. And I mean, it's kind of sounding manipulative, but whenever I say it, sometimes I'm like, don't think it's manipulative, because really
marketing is creepy. We all know.
It's like you're helping them create these you're having these ahas or breakthroughs throughout the process that are changing their identity and opening them up to the possibility of what you have to offer. So it's, I'm trying to think of a good example. And then you do it through stories. So one example I like to give is, you want to sell them a high ticket offer at the end of this thing, because that's best for everybody. And so, but a lot of people are like, ooh, high ticket offer. I don't know. That doesn't feel right because it's too expensive. And, people have all these things. So I like to tell the Kirby vacuum. It's my Kirby vacuum story, but, out of college, just whenever I went to college, I bought a $20 vacuum. I don't know if this happened to you when you went to college and you're like, I'm broke. I need to buy broke junk that's going to break.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And so I bought a $20 vacuum, and like a year later, we bought like 4 vacuums because they all broke within a month or 2 because they're so cheap. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So really quickly, I learned the value of a good investing in something. And then I got to thinking about the Kirby vacuum. And I don't know, for anybody who's not familiar, these are like the super high end $2,000 vacuum. Right. And you don't just go pick one up at the store. Somebody, usually your neighbor's friend, is going around selling these things, and he comes to your house and he gives you this whole presentation, and he shows you how the vacuum can like suck up a bowling ball and it can do all these things. It's so amazing. And so by the end of the presentation, you're totally sold on the vacuum and why you need this thing and how it's going to make your life so much better. And then at this point, I like to ask, who do you think values their vacuum more? The $20 vacuum buyer or the Kirby owner? And then who do you think uses their vacuum more? Who do you think's happier when they use their vacuum?
Yeah.
And who do you think is going to go tell all of their friends about their vacuum? Right?
Yeah. Cool. That's
because if you know anybody who owns a Kirby vacuum, they're like, I've got a Kirby vacuum.
Yeah, no joke. Yeah, they're like,
that
and some Cutco knives. I've got it all.
Yes, the Cutco knives, 100%, right? But you like it genuinely, the high ticket offer genuinely serves them better because they value it more, they're happier, they use it more often. So therefore they get better results, and it serves you better because they're telling all their clients, and you as the Kirby vacuum creator, you as a vacuum creator, you actually have the resources to make a decent vacuum and give them the support that they actually need in order to, service a vacuum.
When you build a vacuum that's meant to last literally for a lifetime, which is crazy. I'm sure you probably know this, Michelle, but they released this study of people who use Kirby vacuums versus everybody else. And the Kirby vacuum owners vacuum 4 times as much as the people who have any other vacuum, any other brand, like Dyson, like the top brands, right? 4 times as much.
4 times.
And it's because the experience, every time they go out there and like, oh, I love my Kirby. Oh, I love my Kirby.
Right.
And it's crazy. So I'm like, that in and of itself, you can totally quote me and steal that if you want.
Yeah, I am. I'm like,
it totally supports your theory. But what's so interesting about that though is that is directly trackable to agency services and other marketing services, because I can tell you right now, I get pitched 40 times a week on some sort of marketing service. And whenever they pitch me on a price lower than $5,000 a month, I know they're not good enough. And I'm like, I'm not going to buy it, because it's like, you're not good enough to provide the result because you don't have enough cash from me to provide a result. So I think you're right on track with this. So like when you're structuring these events and saying, we're building it kind of around that offer, I love how you said, like, it's kind of creepy because you manipulate them, but like that is marketing 101 is like,
right. Yeah.
If you're not a marketer and you're listening to this and you're going, what do they know about me? More than your mother. Let's just put it that way. Right.
Right.
It's scary what Facebook knows about you, by the way. But that being said, I want you to kind of carry on with what you're saying. I feel like we kind of derailed for just a second there on my.
Yeah. So to pull it back to events, basically, I know that my audience needs to understand that I know that my ideal buyer is a person who sells high ticket offers. Right. And so I am going to structure that story along with some other stories to help them build the confidence that they are they have high ticket offers. Right. And we can even go a step further to have them own it as part of their identity, right? That's really, really get people in the events too. Is like, are you the cheap vacuum seller or you are a Kirby vacuum seller? Like, right? Is that your brand? And kind of like, oh, well, I'm a Kirby vacuum maker, right? I'm not some cheap vacuum maker, right? And then you have them saying it, right? That they're like, I'm high ticket. And so they take on these aspects of their identity. And by the end of the event, my ideal buyer, they sell high ticket offers, they value events, they value leverage, there's certain things that they value. And if you instill those values, it's like using the masses and the peer pressure. It's like, let's just go into the manipulation here, right? But then it's serving them the best though, because then by the end, they're ready to buy, the high ticket thing that's really going to accelerate their business and get them the results that they want. And if they haven't followed my journey and those aren't the values that they have or that they took on, then they're not going to buy my thing, because they want to have a $20 vacuum and they're going to be like, and then they're going to leave, and that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. and it's great. That's actually better, because you're like, they would suck as a client anyway. So
right. Yeah.
They're gonna be like, why does my vacuum cost $2,000? I can't believe I'm making payments on this, bub. And like, we're like me, I'm like, dude, if I didn't have to ever shop for vacuums ever again in my life, I'd drop $2,000. I hate it.
Right? Yes, totally. And they feel so good. I mean, you just feel so good about your purchase too. Like, I invested in myself. They're telling themselves all these things about their identity when they buy a Kirby vacuum. I invest in myself. This is a long term. I can give this to my kids. Like that.
Yeah, something they can brag about. Right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's brilliant. And we're coming up to the end of the time here. So I want to just step back in the process. And you talked about that tactic. And I thought it was so brilliant. So you're saying basically look at your ideal client. And can I just throw one extra piece in here just to help support this? Is when you're looking at your ideal client, everybody's always like, they're looking at either way too high in the sky for them, or they're looking at like their existing clients. Most of the time, your existing clients you don't like working with, right? Most of you are probably nodding your heads as you're listening to this. So I would pick that person that you're like, this would be the funnest person to work with. Like, I would enjoy every single day. I would brag about this client. And then you said, write down, what were some of the things that you talked about? Like write down, and then can you like reiterate your tactic for us?
Yes. Another way to think about it, and this also comes from Frank Kern, by the way, this tactic is to frame it as like, if I had to deliver my offer and they only paid if they got a result,
right?
What kind of client would I want to have? What characteristics would the client have if they only paid me after I got them the result?
Oh, that's good.
Right. So, I think to your point, our current clients, we've kind of downsold ourselves on them. I don't know what the word is there, but we've kind of settled. We've settled for lesser because we think, oh, well, maybe they're not going to afford it, or they're not going to pay that high price, or they're kind of annoying, but I really need money in my bank account right now, or whatever. And so you've kind of settled for a lesser than client. Whereas if you had to think about it that way of, you have to get this client results or they don't pay you, then you would rethink who you actually let in your space.
Yeah, I love that. And then basically what they would do is build an event, or honestly, I would say build your offer, build everything around.
Yeah, build everything, your content, everything. Yes. Yeah. But we're like, list out who's, they're hard worker, they're quick decision maker, they actually show up on time, or even all the little things. And then throughout the event, you're building out, of course, stories to support that, and call out your people, call out and call up the people that you want to work with.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. So guys, make sure you go out and do that today. I mean, sit down. It's something, it astonishes me how often entrepreneurs don't stop and think about what they're doing. And by they, I mean me. I even do that same thing. I'm constantly, like, the last year of my life has been slowing down and saying, I need an hour a day to just think about what I'm doing and saying, is this the correct path? If it is, validate it, move forward, right? If it's not, what do I need to change, right? And analyzing it instead of just charging forward on it. I love your tip, because that's something you could apply. Take 30 minutes a day, sit down, write out that list, and then say, how would I help people, this type of person, get the result that they're looking for in an event? So it's transformational. And Michele, I love that tactic, because it also took you to the mid-interview and you're like, I got it. And that was awesome. So for those of you who've been listening to this are saying, oh my gosh, Michele's incredible, which if you haven't, I don't know if you should be listening to the show anymore.
That's okay. We pushed you out.
Yeah. You're out of here anyways. So Michele has a really awesome free gift for you guys. It's over at signaturestages.com/gift. Is that correct, Michele?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Making sure I didn't mess it up. But so it's signaturestages.com/gift. And do you mind telling us what they'll get when they're over there?
Yeah, definitely. It is a free guide and training on how to build out your signature virtual event in 30 days or less. So what are the steps that you take to create this transformational offer that's going to make you millions of dollars while you're at it? Yeah.
And I'm going to throw a dollar value at people just so they have an understanding of this.
Yeah.
Go through this program. It's a free gift. First off, go just try it. Even if you get 10 people in a room and follow this process, if you don't close 2 people, I would be blown away. Now, just if you're selling a good enough high ticket offer, that's 20 grand of your time, just giving you $20,000 for free. So go over to signaturestages.com/gift, collect that, give her your email, guys. I mean, she's going to have great content for you, right? Give her your email. She's going to send it to you. It'll be an incredible free gift for you to be able to launch your own virtual event. So Michele, just to wrap this up, I want to get one good final parting piece of guidance from you, but I'm going to kind of twist this one up a little bit. We're going to switch it up. If you were to have launched an event 4 years ago, like if you'd go back to yourself 4 years ago and say, hey, let's launch an event, what product would you build and why?
Is this my product?
Yeah. What would be your high ticket service you would sell 4 years ago?
4 years ago. Okay, well, I'm giving you another tactic, but it would be a high ticket offer. and it would include an experience, a done for you thing, and some coaching.
I love it.
Yeah. And it would be at least $10,000.
At least, yeah. It's like, it'd be $400,000. No big deal.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, it's just your imagination.
Yeah. Your offer now basically is that. So I'm just kidding, guys. It's not 400 grand. She's awesome. So anyways, Michele, thank you so much for coming on. That was such a fun interview. I appreciate you for bringing your energy and your wisdom here to us today. I will catch you on the flip side.